We continue our Connect to Congress initiative with U.S. Congressman Darin LaHood of Illinois' 18th District. Let's get straight to it. Representative LaHood, I know we just talked about gun control legislation a few weeks ago after the shooting in Las Vegas, but here another shooting has happened in Texas. What kind of talk is happening on Capitol Hill these days in regards to gun control, and do you think tighter legislation is the answer?
Well, first of all, my thoughts and prayers go out to the victims of this tragic shooting in San Antonio. No one would think that something like this would happen in a place of worship, and so we continue to pray for the victims there. There's an investigation going on. Clearly, it looks like the Air Force did not pass along the convictions for the perpetrator here. This was a pure act of evil. We need to get to the bottom of what wasn't done here, what needs to be done in the future. If this person, their convictions had been passed along to the FBI database, that he would not have been able to purchase a gun. We need to look into that further. Laws on the books that we have, being a convicted felon, having a domestic violence conviction, or being treated for mental illness prevents you from getting a gun. If those laws were not complied with here, there needs to be people held accountable for that. And it emphasizes even more, these laws that pertain to gun control need to be enforced. If that means hiring more prosecutors, updating the database, having more law enforcement involved, we need to do all we can to prevent these type of tragedies from continuing to happen. And if you look at the pattern, the unfortunate pattern, these individuals have all been diagnosed with mental illness. Putting more emphasis on mental illness has to be part of what we do. We passed a bill last year that allocated money to do that. I continue to be a strong supporter of that.
1 year ago, President Donald Trump was elected president while he didn't take office until January. How do you feel he's done as commander-in-chief in his first year?
Well, I think the president, if you look at the economy is on the upswing. No one thought the stock market would make it up to 23,000. I think that's an indication that the economy is headed in the right direction. I think the president has put together a very good cabinet of people, many from the private sector, that have brought a new perspective, to government. I think that's a good thing. Many of the regulations that have been put in place under the Obama administration have been rolled back. All of those were almost been done by executive order in the previous administration. I think that's been positive for the economy. I think also looking at unemployment, there are more people working in this country than ever before. We have the lowest unemployment that we've had in our history. I think that's a good thing. I think the president's pick of Neil Gorsuch for the Supreme Court has been an excellent pick and somebody that will represent us well on the Supreme Court. That doesn't mean we don't have challenges. Clearly we do. In Congress, we need to fix health care. That's at the top of the list. We need to pass tax reform, and we need to pass an infrastructure bill. We have a lot of work to do here. Those challenges still exist. And listen, I think the president's actions have been very, very good. I don't always necessarily like the way he says it or the way he articulates it, but I think thus far the actions have helped with the economy and getting that back on track. And those were the two biggest things from the election a year ago. The economy, getting that back on track, and secondly, the future of the Supreme Court. And I think on both of those things, he's done a pretty good job.
This week, you were introducing a bill to honor Sgt Josh Rogers. What will that bill do?
Sgt Josh Rogers, who is a constituent in our district, is a true American hero. He was fighting in Afghanistan last spring. He tragically died on April 27th, where he was fighting to an ISIS brigade over there. He was trying to free people from a prison held in Afghanistan. And so we're honoring Josh Rogers by naming the post office in Bloomington Normal this week in a bill after him. We've had bipartisan support. Every member of the Illinois congressional delegation has signed on to the bill. This is a way to honor and acknowledge his service and what he did for our country. And I remind people all the time, our freedom is not free, and it's because of people like Sgt Josh Rogers that we have the great country that we do, but we need to honor his service, and we do this with this bill naming the post office after him. We'll drop that bill today, and we hope to get it passed in the House here by the end of the year and get it passed by the Senate and put it into law.
The House passed several bills to help veterans this week. What are those bills?
So we are debating and passing 3 bills as it relates to our veterans. In our congressional district, we have the second highest amount of veterans in the state of Illinois. The first bill is a Veterans Accountability Act, where we try to look at the VA and hold it more accountable to make sure that the roles and the responsibilities at VA are being done correctly, making the VA more efficient, effective, and accountable to veterans and to taxpayers. We think that will lead us in the right direction. That'll be a bipartisan bill. Second bill looks at, there has been too many instances where predatory and dishonest practices go after the pensions of veterans. And so we put in place some protection measures for our veterans to make sure that those practices don't continue, and we hold people accountable for that and make sure that people are appropriately prosecuted and deter those type of actions. The third bill pertains to spouses or family members of veterans. Right now, many of them cannot get a headstone next to their spouse or father or mother that served in the military. We changed that practice in military cemeteries, and that bill will help family members to be able to be buried next to their loved ones. And so we think these three bills will go a long way in helping our veterans.
Thank you, Congressman LaHood. As always, we appreciate your time.